Good evening and welcome. I'm Marty Hofer, Digital Content Manager for Keep Indiana Learning. And with me tonight is Kristen Parisi. I am, as always, excited to have you tonight, Kristen, continuing our series for early childhood educators. This should have been the fourth in our series. It's only the third now. Number 4 will come next week. So tonight we're talking about early childhood accreditation. And my feeling about this is that not everyone will do the accreditation process in an early childhood center, but everyone in the center is impacted by it. And so that's why it's important for everyone to have an understanding of what the process is and how it works. So am I on the right track there?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. So I'm excited to talk.
All right. Well, I will mute myself and go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Okay. Well, hopefully everybody has a chance to jot down my email address. There's my Twitter handle, if that's what you call it. And what I really want is for you to make sure that you write down my email address, because going through the accreditation process, whether you are doing the FSSA or level 1 of Paths to Quality, or if you're moving up to level 2, 3, and 4, this can be really confusing. So to have somebody that you can email and say, hey, can you walk me through this step, or what do I do next, I think is really key. And it has been the key to our success at Clark Pleasant Early Learning Center. So with that, let's talk a little bit. I'm working on a couple of different screens here and some different AV set up. So bear with me a little bit, everyone. But here's a little bit of everything that I felt when I started my job. I knew that one of the goals for Clark Pleasant Early Learning Center in January of 2021 was to go through the Paths to Quality accreditation process. That is Indiana's only accreditation process for early childhood centers, including home-based centers, licensed ministry centers, or school-based centers. And so that was one thing I knew when I applied for the job, that this was going to be a big thing. And I remember saying to a mentor through the cohort process, I cannot fail at this. It was just something that I kind of, when I grabbed these pictures and put them in the presentation today, I felt like there were so many moments that I was overwhelmed. And then the picture on the right of this, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm scared and kind of freaking out. And then today I feel like I'm the one in the middle. So I'm curious as to what you are. So take just a second or two and think about where you are in the process of accreditation and which picture best describes you. And then what's your goal for accreditation? Why is it that you want to do this? Is it to just get your Paths to Quality rating? Is it to be able to accept CCDF funds? Is it to improve your instruction or raise awareness throughout your community? I hope it's a little bit of all of those things. And I can tell you that just in my experience, in the past couple of years, going through the Paths to Quality accreditation, we've hit all of those marks. So this is something that when people say, are you just checking the boxes? It truly allowed us to look at the instruction, look at our environments, do something better for our community, which has been huge for us. So I'm going to get into a little bit of all of those. So, what does the data say? And this, let me even back up. One thing I've noticed is that when I started learning about early childhood accreditation, Paths to Quality, CCDF, FSSA, I mean, like, there's so many acronyms, more so than I was used to being an educator for 20 plus years. And you can get lost in this. You can go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. And it happened again to me today, because I clicked on this website at brighterfuturesindiana.org, and I started to dig into some of the data, and wowzers, there is a lot to see. This screen gives you some of the numbers, and a part of when you become a school that accepts CCDF funds, the childhood or the child care development funds, when you accept CCDF money, you are then required to submit your enrollment numbers. And so you can see on the state picture, each of the counties are mapped out there and the current capacity, and that is the number of seats in each county. That's what you see there on the screen. And then it breaks it down so I can click and go even further and see how many vacancies each county has, how many, the total seats, how many vacancies, what's the enrollment. All of it screams to me, we've got to do something to get more seats in schools and in centers for children who need it the most. And in our situation, we really felt like that meant we needed to open up funding possibilities for children who might not otherwise be able to afford a high quality early childhood educational experience. So I have one of my last slides gives you all of the different websites that I have kind of referenced throughout the presentation. So you'll have a resource slide. So don't worry if you're not able to click on this yet. And so Brighter Futures, I did want to hop on there real quickly and show you. This is one of those places that, again, you can get lost in this because you will want to look and see what parents are able to see when they start to search for an early childhood center. You can click on how to become a provider. iLead is a website that I visit all the time, and that's kind of where all of my staff data is housed. And so Brighter Futures is a great help if I can't figure out how to get somebody registered, or I see them, but I can't see their fingerprint status or something like that. So this is definitely some place that you want to bookmark so that you can see how to best help children and families, and even more so, how to help your staff through this process. So here's the whole nutshell. So you want to go, if you want to be able to accept state and federal funds for children who meet the poverty line requirement. So it's 127% of the federal poverty line. Now, when I say that, in my head, I think that means I ought to be able to figure out exactly what that dollar amount is, but you can't, because it is, there's a chart that you can give to families and you can pull up yourself that will allow you to figure out if a family is eligible. And the reason that it's not so cut and dry, and you should be able to say 127% of the federal poverty line means this, because they factor in the number of people in your home. So you start with the enrollment process for Paths to Quality, and you'll be able, I will show you where you can access this form. There's a lot, there are like 4 pages in addition to this page. But going through the Spark Learning Lab, which you get through by going to your iLead account, that is really the key to where everything is housed. And so you'll see indianaspark.com is a great resource for you. When I first started, and if you remember just a little bit ago, I said to a mentor, I cannot fail. I joined a cohort group through Indiana Spark, through Spark Learning Lab. And Nicole was my cohort leader, and she was so incredibly kind and patient with me. So if you are someone who knows enough to be able to lead a school, but yet not enough to go through the accreditation process on your own, I felt like that was me. I am a strong educator. I am passionate about this work. I've been doing it for a long time, but this was my first time going through this accreditation process all on my own. Nicole and the other gals at Spark Learning Lab were fantastic about supporting me. And the first way that I got support was to join a cohort group. They have continual groups that meet. We met like every other Tuesday during my lunchtime, and it was a virtual meeting. And so we did this whole like 8-week program together. And then I said to Nicole, I would really like to just do it again. And so I know that maybe this is just for a one-time thing, but could I just join again, sit and listen one more time? And of course, she said, yes, come back, join again. And so we've had a great relationship. She also has hooked me up with other centers and other directors and principals. And like I was able early on to identify that one of the hardest, most challenging areas for my staff was going to be setting up the physical environment. So I asked her, who do you know that has a beautiful environment? And I was able then to take a tour virtually through the school to see how their teachers had set up their classroom environment. And then we recorded that, and I was able to show my staff. So this was still kind of in that COVID time when we weren't really opening up our schools for a lot of visitors. So we made it work through a virtual option, and it was fantastic. So the Paths to Quality system is a 4-level system. And the very basic first level deals with health and safety. And this is through FSSA. And so I hope I'm not going to make anyone sick real quickly, because what I want to do is show you how I have kept track of everything. So this is the reason why I have a different setup. So I'm going to show you. Hopefully, oh, you know what? I bet not there. That's
Except it's upside down. So you can
yes, and because I have a blurred background on.
Oh, yes.
So give me just a minute
All
to
right.
take care of my blurred background.
No problem. Because as soon as you put your hand up there, your hand's nicely.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
small.
All right. So this is the way that I've organized everything. So for level 1, the most challenging part of this is the organization of the paperwork. So here is what every staff member needs to have. And if you can read that, it says, things from your Intego receipt, which is your fingerprinting, your health and safety orientation training, all of those things, 12 hours of module work, and so on and so on. So how in the world was I going to organize all of this, and how was I going to make sure that all of my staff had this done and I was not going to forget or just not see that someone didn't do something? So I created a spreadsheet for everyone. Let's see, that is not upside down, is it, Marty?
It's too small for me to read it, but I don't think it's upside down.
Okay, all right. So anyway, I have everybody's name on the first couple of columns. And when you are green, that means you have everything that you need to have. And then I just put up at the top every piece that I knew people had to have. So I needed to have their first and last name. I needed their title. I needed to have a column, because if a staff member is not with a student for at least 8 hours per month, then they are exempt from turning some of this information in. So that would be like my physical therapist, depending on the number of students she has on her caseload at the time that we are going through this process, she may not need to go through all of this. My secretary, my nurse, things like that. And prior to this year, our school psychologist wasn't with us for that length of time. So I needed some way to keep track of everyone electronically, but then I needed some way to keep track of the paperwork that comes with it. So that's when I came up with the file folders, which was really nice because then when the rater came, I was able to just pull out the file folders, put them on the table, and she could flip through every single one because she's going to want to see that you have first aid. You have to have that documentation. She's going to want, let's see, I have a lot of other documents in mind because of the training that I needed to do, some additional training, but she is going to want to see the fingerprint receipt. She's going to want to see the certificates that say that you did all of the modules. So there are 12 hours worth of work that you have to do. And these are the modules that are found in the Spark Learning Lab and I lead. So all of that is documented here. So this was just a good place to house everything that I needed. It does have some confidential information for staff members, so I make sure that I keep all of that information locked up because I don't want it to go into the wrong hands. So then I also have, and if you, let's see, can you see? Oh yeah, you can see how big this binder is. So this is where I also keep track of all the information for the additional levels. So when we achieved level 1, and that meant we could start to accept CCDF funds, then it was time to go and be fast-tracked to the next level. So we could have gone just to level 2, but we already had a planned curriculum. And so I felt like there was no reason why we wouldn't just jump right to level 3. So this binder has kind of become my holy grail. Let me see if I can get it up a little better so you're not just staring at blank pages. And so I have everything in here. I organized the binder by levels. So level 1 that's in here has everything that I knew the FSSA rater was going to want to see. So copies of, here's the staff list. She needs to know how old we all are, which was lovely when I realized that I was amongst the oldest. Things like, where are my fire logs kept? What is the emergency preparedness plan look like? All of this information that goes through for level 1. So I have copies of a lot of this information in a Google Drive that I have linked to the website or to this presentation that Marty will be able to share with everybody so that you can see how we documented it. Some of it was done through board policy, which was really easy. And so I was able to contact our HR director so that he could show me exactly where all of that information was, because as a new staff member, I didn't know some of that. So here I've got to be able to show that I went through an orientation process with the staff members. So I have copies like that. I've got our maps, all of that stuff is kept in this binder. And I don't know a better word for it other than stuff. So then I went, so I have level 1 and then I had level 2, but I kind of clipped all of that together because I knew that I was going to jump over level 2. So you can see, I just took all the level 2 standards, I clipped them together, and anything that was a level 2 that, like for the learning environments, that piece I needed to make sure I have. And I was able to document that. I continued to put all of that in here. And again, when you go through the rubric, and that's what's so fantastic about this, that Spark Learning Lab and Paths to Qualities, they're going to give you a very specific rubric that deals with the specific type of environment that you are. So if you are a ministry, if you're a home center, if you are a school-based center, and then they're going to say this is exactly what you need to have. So I took each of those and I typed those out on these. Actually, I probably just cut and pasted it. So that's what this is up here. So you can see, again, I know it's just probably a little too small for you. But this is standard 2.3, that the director is a member of a nationally recognized early childhood organization. And so I have that documentation in the binder. So here's my membership documentation. And then, so I just kept everything right in the binder so that I would be able to send it off or hand the binder to the rater. What I have now learned is they allow you to submit your documents electronically prior to your rating visit. And that was a huge time saver for the rater. So I'll talk a little bit about how I did that. But I just think your organization system it was the hardest thing for me to figure out kind of how to wrap my head around how I wanted and where I wanted to house all of that information. And so I walked into some of this when I took over for the previous administrator, and then fine-tuned it a little bit more for what I thought would work for me. So back to me. We actually had our first rating visit. It was about a year ago. And it was such a magical day for us because I knew without a shadow of a doubt that we were going to be successful. And again, it's so nice because just like as teachers, when we give our students a rubric, you're taking the guesswork out of how to get a letter, how to get an A on an assignment. They take the guesswork out of it because they say this is exactly what you need in order to achieve levels 1, 2, and 3, and 4. It just was such a fun day. And it was neat to be able to experience that with our staff, to experience it with our school district and our administration, because it really meant that we were going to be able to open up seats for more students in our school and in our community. So how it works is if you take CCDF, so you are a level 1, you are given a certain amount of dollars per week based on market rate. And then each level continues to give you a little bit more money for any child that meets that criteria, that financial criteria, again, the 127% of the poverty line. And then when you hit level 3, you are allowed to accept you're allowed to accept On My Way Pre-K. And that really has helped our students to gain access to a great pre-K program. It's also been financially to our benefit because we are given market rate plus 10%. And we don't charge what market rate is yet. And we've been really intentional about trying to make sure we're in that sweet spot for being affordable, yet not the cheapest place in the county, obviously, but yet we want to make sure that we are charging the right amount for families. So I felt very strongly even this year that when everything else in the world seems to be increasing with inflation, that we were not going to increase our costs. And part of that was because since we get this market rate plus 10% for a weekly amount, it really has brought in some additional funds for us that we've been able to slide into different places and use them. And I'm excited to say that next year we'll be able to have a scholarship fund because that 127%, it doesn't take into effect the family who maybe is just 128% or 126, like right there on that line. And then there is a window of opportunities for On My Way Pre-K families to apply. And so that window, for example, opens up in about 13 days. I was looking at my calendar, and then it will close as funding kind of dwindles a little bit, there obviously isn't an unlimited amount of money in the state's pot. And so they will put an end date, and that typically comes around September or October. So, depending on our numbers and if we can take additional children, if we have someone move, we certainly try to keep that spot filled. But if you're filling that spot in December with a family who really could only afford to come if they were able to qualify for the scholarship money through On My Way Pre-K, but yet the scholarship money is done, I would like to be able to have another alternative for families. So I'm hoping that we might be able to use the excess funds that we're receiving to help additional families. And then the Paths to Quality Level 4, you can see it kind of puts on the addition of national accreditation. So for us, we had this incredible moment last Friday during our staff meeting where my staff said to me, we want to go for level 4. And I was like, yes, that's the best thing I think I've heard in a very long time. It was just wonderful because I have really pushed them over the last 2 years that I've been in this position. And, you get to a point where you're like, how much more can I push before I have, the Boston Tea Party on my hands? So I wanted to kind of just let everybody sit for a minute. And I truly believe that you can go slow to go fast. And so we were going to slow down for just a bit. But when they said to me, why aren't we going for level 4? We know you want to, so let's go. So I'm really excited about that. So we're going to go through the national accreditation process with NACCE. So right now we're starting that by just diving into the NACCE standards. And so I can show you kind of a little bit about how we're doing that. So if you don't have already an Access Indiana account, you are going to want to create that. So Access Indiana is kind of Indiana's, is where Indiana is housing all of the government websites. So my BMV is on there. All kinds of different Indiana state-based websites. And so iLead is also going to be housed now through Access Indiana. So I always just Google iLead, or I just start typing iLead login, and that gets me to the iLead website, and then I can log in. It then takes me over to Access Indiana, then I can log in. So when you don't have that, you click on that link that says don't have an Access Indiana account, and it will walk you through setting that up. Here's a little pro tip. You need to be on a computer. If your staff members try to do this on their phones, you can't see everything on the phone, on the mobile site. So you definitely need to be on your computer to do that. But you also need to have a second device so that you can do the second or the two-factor authentication. And I will tell you that you want to go ahead and do that. And you need to have a rescue email in iLead. I set up my original iLead account with my previous school district. And then when something wasn't sent correctly, somehow it got all messed up. Things were sent to my old email account through my previous district, and it was a mess. So have a home email as part of your iLead account also. And then I just clipped a little picture of the file folders that I showed you a minute ago. Here is everything that you need to have in that file folder. And then here's my Google Drive. And this just has a ton of information for you. I hope it's helpful. If you've got any questions as you're looking it over, please don't hesitate to just shout out at me, send me an email, ask where I found things. It's probably one of the hardest things that I have found through this process is just locating all of the forms and the documents and the things to make sure that I have it the way that they want it. And so this This is a form that a friend of mine shared with me from another district in Franklin Township. And so you have to have, for level 3, you have to have your teaching staff has to have 20 hours of PD. When they say teaching staff, they mean instructional assistants and your classroom teachers. So anyone who is with children for more than 8 hours in a month, those folks are considered teaching staff. So this is where we document everything. And I just created, I've created one whole sheet that has, or one workbook, I guess that's what it's called, that has different tabs down at the bottom. And this is the template that I use. So I make one for each staff member. And then I even put, like, the beginning sheet was just kind of a log of all of our staff members. So if you hold on just a moment, and I will let you see the exact one that we use. But I gave you access so that you could make one of your own. So here's my template, just my blank form, and then here's all of my staff members, and this auto populates from all of these tabs down at the bottom, so you can see, pull up mine. You can see the date that I was hired, because you have to write that down 75 times. So make sure I have it on my file folders and I have it on this document. When I did the universal precautions training, CPR, first aid, and then I just start dumping in all of my trainings. I have that, add everything up, and then I linked this box over to that beginning page so that I could just say, here are all the people that I know have at least 20. So you can see, here's mine, and there is are my hours. So that is there for you to take a peek at. And let's see, let's get back to the drive. And let's see. I'm going to just flip through a little bit. So the rubric that I told you about, this is, it's 41 pages. So it's going to take just a second. But one thing I did was, anytime I gave this to the staff, I took out all the pages that we didn't need. So here's the beginning part of the licensed child care centers. So I know that I needed to go through and find the one that was school-based. So I just got rid of all the pages that I knew it's just going to be confusing. So this document is in here. It's also found on the Spark, in the Spark Learning Lab. So make sure that you, I think this is probably one of those that I have Googled and then I bookmarked and then I printed, and now I just have it all the time with me, because it's just something that we want to make sure that we have in mind and front and center in our planning as much as possible. This past Friday, we took a look at the questions that might be asked of our staff members when our rater comes. So let me find one of our documents that we used. I took the staff through an activity where we went through, I created a Jamboard for everyone, and I put the questions that we would be doing or that we would be talking about on the Jamboard. And hold on, I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute. And so I can go through and find this a little bit faster and not worry about making you all sick to your stomach when I scroll. So we took the questions, and we, because the rater is going to come in and will want to see everything that you're doing, obviously. And then she will want to, if she can't see something, she's going to want to ask questions of your staff. So let's see. Let me get back to the place where I can share. What did we ever do without all of the technology? Okay. Marty, are you seeing my screen with the past equality questions?
I
coming
sure
up?
am.
Okay.
And all those colorful little, yes,
yes,
post-it
yes.
notey looking things. Yes.
So, so we did this in Jamboard. So I was able to put staff members together in small groups, and I had typed across the top ahead of time all of those questions that she might ask of the staff. And then they just went in and they put in the information that they felt like would be the most appropriate answer. And we did this because our instructional staff members, like our classroom teachers, they're with me for longer and more meetings and more planning time, more discussion time than our instructional assistants are. But I know that because I've got this incredibly devoted team of instructional assistants, none of them wanted to be put into a position where they just weren't quite sure what they should say. And not because they don't, not because they're not a part of this team, but just because maybe they weren't a part of a discussion that took place on a Friday when we have planning and they're not here or whatever. So we went through all of these questions together. And we put in, like describe your daily communication for parents. We use Parent Square. We're also talking to parents at car line and drop off and pick up and those kinds of times. So lots of different answers in here. I will go ahead and put this in the folder also so that you have access to this. And hopefully that will help you. And then that confirmation checklist. This is what you turn in when you are ready for your rating visit. The sweet gal that dealt with me, God love her, she was so kind. And again, these folks, they want you to be successful. So they are really nice to you. And thank God, because I did this so wrong so many times. So if that's you, don't worry. There's somebody out there, me, who probably did it worse. So you want to fill all of this information out, and then you send that right back to pastequality@indianaspark.com. And they then will connect you with a rater who was also, we've had the same rater 2 years in a row, and she's just amazing. And she also walked me through a couple of things that I was missing in the electronic documents that I sent her. And so I was able to get some additional information prior to her rating visit, so that when she came, all she had to do was look right into the classrooms and spend the time with the teachers, which is really where I wanted her to be anyway. So I've got that. Whoops, sorry about that. Here, I should have just kept clicking through my presentation, because this is the document that I just showed you with the Jamboard, the questions, the possible answers. Here is our Google Drive. This is the example of our training that we have to do. So the FSSA training, that is what I showed you. And then the past equality training hours. Oops, I have those linked incorrectly, so I'm going to fix that. But the FSSA training is the one that has the documents for the first aid, the 12 hours of module work. Everybody has to go through the Indiana Early Learning Foundation training, which is so funny to me because it's still called the new Early Learning Foundations, but it's not the new ones that are coming out this spring. It's the old ones. So I had to always just tell people, I know you can't even access it right now, but you still need to go through and do the training. So we're anxiously awaiting those new standards to come out. And then I've got some information here. These are all links. So Marnie, we're going to be able to post the presentation. Is that right?
Absolutely. When this is posted to YouTube, down in the show description, there will be a link to the presentation.
Okay, good, because these are links that are live for you. So I really wanted to be able to try to give you as much of the information that you would need so that you don't get caught in the rabbit hole of the digging, and then it's like I find something and then I'm 10 clicks later and I am looking up something that I had no intention of searching for, but now I'm interested in this, and so I'm, you understand. The one thing I did want to talk about, when you accept On My Way pre-K funds, you are then required to do a KRI, which is Kindergarten Readiness Inventory. And so this is an assessment that you have to do with all of your children who accept or who are accepting or receiving, I should say, On My Way pre-K funds. So we do iSprout for every student in our school. If the student has an IEP and they receive On My Way pre-K funds, then you are allowed to submit the iSprout data instead of doing the KRI. But if they don't have an IEP, then you have to do the KRI, whether you do iSprout or not. The KRI does not come back to us with any information that is specific to our center or our school. It will come back in auspice form. So it will come back to me and say, okay, schools that are faith-based or ministry-based schools, they're doing really well in this area and they are more challenged in this area, or school-based programs, you're doing very well in this, but it won't be specific to our school. So that will take some time to go through because you do need to do that individually with each student. But again, it's worth it. I received the training. I've tagged on to our school psychologist who is welcoming the opportunity to do these assessments with the kids too. So we'll get that done and try our very best to not take classroom teachers out of their classrooms, since that information coming back isn't going to be as usable and important to the classroom teacher as like the iSprout assessment data that we receive. And so then my almost last slide, here are all of those different links for you. CCDF, the best place that I have been able to send families is Firefly, and they have been fantastic about helping our families as they start the CCDF and funding process. I will also give a huge shout out. So our On My Way pre-K manager, our district manager is Amy Bishop, and she is unbelievable at answering the questions that we have. So my administrative assistant and treasurer, Stacy, she's the one who, because she deals so much with all of our money that comes in, she's kind of taken over how to and how to process the funds, how to make sure that families get the data and the paperwork and all of that stuff done correctly. And so Stacy and Amy Bishop work together so well. And last Friday, we had our enrollment day for this upcoming school year. And Amy just came and spent the entire day with us answering families' questions. She's going to come back after the On My Way pre-K window opens and help families get enrolled. So please take advantage of those folks. They want to be as successful in their job as we want to be in ours. And so then there's some additional information there to help you. But I want to remind you to go back to the first slide where my email was. If you did not write it down, I want you to go back and get it, because I really want you to know that that I'm here to help you. Part of the level 4 accreditation is to mentor a school. So I need to ask you to allow me to help you. So that will help us, and hopefully it will help you as well. Unless I've just given you awful information tonight, that is more confusing than ever before. But I hope not. So really, I would love to invite you to come out and tour our school. We are incredibly proud of the work that we do at Clark Pleasant Early Learning Center, and we're happy to help you. So I want to make sure that if you are watching tonight, either live or on demand, that you receive your PGP certificate. So here is the link for that. And Marty, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Oh, Kristen. Okay, one, your organization. And I think that's often a piece we overlook in a big project like this, but if you can set yourself up for success early, it makes the end process so much easier. So thank you for even sharing what feels simple, but is so critical, that organization. So,
and I was really lucky when I took this job. The former administrator, Terry Magnuson, he was super organized. And so he had a lot of it set up that then I could just kind of walk into, tweak it to make it a little bit more like the tabs on the little pieces of paper on the file folder. Like I needed that because I just needed to know what was in here. And I needed, like, when I get a new staff member, I hand them a folder, and inside the folder are the forms that I need them to sign and every step-by-step process of what they need to return the folder to me looking like. So I needed some way that they could see what they were doing and check it all off. So it kind of screams type A, and I'm okay with that. But happy to share that process with anybody if you want.
Yes, and maybe it does scream type A, but how much better to have all of that stuff organized and ready. So when your person does walk in for that accreditation step, everything is there and ready to go.
And I figure, like, the last thing I want to do is make this person flustered or angry, or like, she doesn't need to see my dirty laundry, so I'm going to clean the house before she gets here. So I also, and I'm not even sure if I said, we had our rating visit yesterday. So when she came and she looked at my conference room table and she said, I knew you'd have snacks for me. Heck yes, I had snacks. I know the way to a person's heart. So little basket with some snacks. I had some water, a little handwritten card for her. She does a hard job too. And so just to give somebody a moment to say, somebody said, well, you're kind of a suck up. Okay, well, who doesn't love a good suck up? Right? Like,
well, and I'll spin it. Instead of saying a suck up, you saw her as a human, not someone that you needed to be adversarial with, someone who was out to get you. I see you as a human who gets hungry and who wants a drink and who just wants to be seen. And so what a better way to start what I'm sure is not an exciting day for her, flipping through 75,000 pieces of paper.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't say the suck up. I wanted to be nice to her because there are times in my day that I just need somebody to be nice to me. So
exactly. And also, thank you for sharing about the mentor program, because it speaks so powerfully as you talked about how your mentor was helpful to you. And I can see why that's such an important piece to this process, because like you said, just even knowing where to look is huge, but then just not getting lost in the 14 different rabbit trails you could go down. So thank you.
Yeah, very welcome.
Yeah, so let me get a drink and then
absolutely. And I will just say, I know Marty's going to touch on this, but the series that Angelina and Marty and I are doing on early childhood, we hope that you can take advantage of the different content areas that we've put out already, the different shows, I don't know what you call it, sessions.
Sure.
But take some time to go through, find those sessions. Angelina is a delightful presenter, and I have learned so much from her. She and I have different perspectives. We have different backgrounds, and it's been really fun to work with her and learn from her, and see how we can kind of gel together to to put together some things that we hope are really useful hour-long sessions for you or so.
Yes, and so like I said, this is the third in this series. Our fourth one will be next Wednesday night, supporting behaviors in multi-age classrooms. That's what Angelina is going to wrap up the series on. And I know of no age band that probably deals in multi-age classrooms more than early childhood.
Right.
So what an important session. And something tells me that there are going to be tips for educators of all levels, because we often work with kids, you know, at the bus or in an after school club where you've got multiple ages together, and how do we make that work? So
right. Well, and chronological age is one thing, but mental age is something different. And you know, you may have a group of children who are all 6 or 5 based on the day they were born, but we all know children develop at different rates.
Yes, that is a great point that I had not considered. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. And I'll just remind everybody one more time, to get your PGP certificate, go to keepindianalearning.org/PGP. It's about a 5 or 6 question quick survey, and then you can download your PGP certificate right then. So there you go. Thank you, Kristen, for your time this evening. It has been a great series. And I know you have a blog coming out soon, so we'll stay on the lookout for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great night.